The cold winter air bit at Terrence Walker's face as he pulled up outside one of his own bank branches, the sign above gleaming under the morning sun. He had worked tirelessly for years to build his financial empire, overcoming obstacles that most would have given up on. Yet today he was not here as the CEO. He was here as an ordinary man, one who simply needed assistance at his own bank. Dressed in a simple jacket and jeans, his usual tailored suits left behind, he stepped out of his car and glanced around. People hurried in and out of the building, business as usual. He took a deep breath, straightened his posture, and walked inside. The warmth of the lobby was a stark contrast to the bitter cold outside. But something else caught his attention, the way the staff barely looked his way. Terrence had built his company on principles of customer service, fairness, and respect. He expected his employees to treat everyone with dignity, regardless of how they looked or dressed. But as he approached the counter, he noticed the dismissive glances from the tellers. A few employees whispered to each other, exchanging looks that were impossible to miss. Still, he remained composed. "Good morning," he greeted the teller with a polite nod. "I need some help with my account." The young woman behind the counter barely looked up. She tapped on her keyboard before sighing and saying, "Do you even have an account here?" Terrence raised an eyebrow, but he kept his tone even. "Yes, I do. I'd like to withdraw some funds." She sighed again, this time louder. "You need an appointment for that," she said, her eyes scanning him, from head to toe as if she had already decided he was in the wrong place. Something about her tone made his stomach tighten. He had seen this before, assumptions, judgments, biases. But here, in his own bank, it was unacceptable. "I was not aware I needed an appointment," he said, his voice calm but firm. "I have my ID, my account details." "Sir, I'm going to have to ask you to step aside," the teller interrupted. "We have real customers waiting." Real customers? The words echoed in his mind. Terrence glanced around. Others had walked up to different tellers and were being helped without any issue. But he, a black man dressed in everyday clothes, was being brushed aside as if he did not belong. A security guard shifted near the entrance, his eyes fixed on Terrence now, as if he were a problem. The uneasy feeling in Terrence's chest deepened. Had walked into this bank expecting to see how his employees operated firsthand. What he was witnessing instead was a reality that too many people faced daily. Discrimination, hidden behind polite words and corporate policies. But what would happen when they found out who he really was? Would their attitudes change? Would they scramble to correct their behavior? Or would they double down, refusing to see the problem right in front of them? Terrence was about to find out. Terrence stood there for a moment, the teller's words still hanging in the air. Real customers. He could feel the weight of the stares around him, the quiet judgment, the unspoken assumption that he did not belong. He knew this feeling too well, but experiencing it inside his own bank made it sting even more. The security guard shifted again, his hand resting near his belt, not quite reaching for anything. But the message was clear. He was watching. Terrence took a slow breath, steadying himself. "I'm simply here to withdraw money from my account," he repeated, keeping his voice even. "I have the right to do that, don't I?" The teller finally looked at him. Really looked at him, but there was no apology in her eyes. If anything, she seemed annoyed that he had not just walked away. "Sir, I already told you," she said, her voice sharper this time. "You need an appointment for large withdrawals. Now, if you don't have one, I suggest you move so we can help paying." Customers. A few people in line behind him shifted uncomfortably. Some of them were glancing away, pretending not to notice, while others watched with thinly veiled curiosity. No one spoke up. No one questioned why he was being treated differently. Terrence could feel a slow burn rising in his chest. He had spent years building this bank, making sure it served the community, ensuring that everyone, no matter who they were, was treated with respect. But now, standing here as just another customer, he saw something different, something ugly. He kept his composure. "Can I speak to the branch manager?" The teller smirked slightly, as if she had been waiting for him to say that. "He's busy," she said. "Like I told you, without an appointment, there's not much we can do for you." Terrence clenched his jaw. He could have ended this right now. He could have pulled out his phone, called the regional director, and within minutes this entire branch would be scrambling. But that was not why he was here. He had come to see the truth, and the truth was revealing itself in ways he had not even anticipated. "I'll wait," he said, stepping aside but not leaving. The teller let out an exaggerated sigh but said nothing. The security guard was still, watching, his expression unreadable. As Terrence moved to a quiet corner, he took the moment to observe. A middle-aged woman walked up to the next available teller. She was dressed in business attire, carrying a leather handbag, and greeted with a warm smile. No appointment needed. No hesitation. The teller processed her request immediately. A young man in casual clothes, not much different from what Terrence was wearing, walked up next. He was white. The teller smiled at him, made light conversation, and helped him without question. Terrence's mind was racing, but he stayed calm. He had spent years working his way up in the corporate world, breaking barriers, fighting battles he never should have had to fight, and yet despite everything he had accomplished, despite owning this very bank, the moment he stepped in as just another customer, he was treated as if he did not belong. Minutes passed, then more. The manager never appeared. Terrence knew exactly what was happening. They expected him to get frustrated and leave. That was the strategy, but he was not going anywhere. After nearly half an hour, he saw a tall man in a suit step out from an office at the back, the branch manager. He was chatting with another employee, smiling completely at ease. He had not been busy at all. Terrence watched as the teller who had dismissed him leaned toward the manager, whispered something, and nodded in his direction. The manager's expression shifted slightly, and then he sighed, as if already irritated by the inconvenience. The manager approached with a practiced smile, the kind that looked professional but held no real warmth. "Sir, I hear you're having an issue?" Terrence straightened, meeting his eyes. "I was told I needed an appointment to withdraw my own money," he said, keeping his tone measured. "But I've been watching. It seems that rule only applies to certain people." The manager's smile faltered for a fraction of a second before it returned. "I assure you, sir, we have policies in place for large transactions to prevent fraud and ensure customer safety." Terrence raised an eyebrow. "And those policies only apply when I walk in?" The manager hesitated, then forced another smile. "Of course not. But we do have to follow security measures." Terrence took a step closer, his voice calm but firm. "Then I'd like to follow those same security measures. Go ahead, verify my account, look me up." The manager hesitated again, then nodded slowly. "Fine, let's go to my office." As Terrence followed him, he could still feel the eyes on him. The staff, the customers, some curious, some indifferent. But none of them knew what was coming. Next, because soon, they would all learn exactly who he was. The manager's office was a stark contrast to the tension in the lobby. It was spacious, well-furnished, and smelled of polished wood and fresh coffee. Terrence took in the neatly arranged desk, the framed awards on the wall, and the carefully placed photographs that made the space feel inviting, except the welcome was nowhere to be found. The manager gestured toward a chair. "Please, have a seat." Terrence sat watching as the man took his place behind the desk. The manager's fingers tapped lightly against the polished wood as he leaned back in his chair, offering another one of those polite but insincere smiles. "So you're looking to withdraw money today?" Terrence kept his expression neutral. "That's right. A standard transaction, nothing unusual." The manager nodded, then glanced at his screen, typing in a few details. "What's the account name?" Terrence let the silence hang for a moment before speaking. "Terrence Walker." The manager's fingers froze on the keyboard. His smile faded, his brows twitching slightly as if he had misheard. He quickly masked his reaction, but the hesitation was already there. Terrence saw it all, the flicker of recognition, the calculation in his eyes, the way his posture stiffened ever so slightly. The manager cleared his throat. "Terrence Walker. All right, let me pull that up." He typed, his eyes scanning the screen. Terrence already knew what he was seeing. One of the largest accounts in the bank, multiple holdings, a record of business ownership that left no room for doubt. But the manager said nothing. He did not acknowledge the name. Instead, he leaned back again, pressing his fingers together. "I see," he said slowly. "And you're requesting a withdrawal?" Terrence tilted his head. "That's what I said." The manager hesitated again. "If I may ask, what's the purpose of this withdrawal?" Terrence's expression remained unreadable. "Does it matter? Well, for large transactions we sometimes ask—" "You didn't ask the others," Terrence interrupted, his voice calm but firm. "I watched. No one else was questioned." The manager's mouth opened slightly, then closed. He forced a chuckle. "I assure you, sir, we apply the same rules to everyone." "That's not what I saw." The tension in the room thickened. The manager shifted, clearly aware that the conversation was no longer going in the direction he had hoped. He tapped few more keys on his computer, likely just for show, before looking back up. "Well, Mr. Walker, I'm afraid I still need to verify some things before processing this request." Terrence nodded slowly. "That's fine. Verify all you need." The manager gave a tight smile and picked up the phone. He turned slightly away as he dialed, lowering his voice as he spoke. "Yes, I have a client here looking to make a sizable withdrawal." "Yes. No, he doesn't have an appointment." Terrence watched him carefully. The manager was stalling. He was looking for an excuse, a way to justify the way he had handled things. He was hoping someone on the other end of the line would back him up. Then the shift happened. The manager's eyes widened slightly, his back straightened. His hand gripped the phone just a little tighter. Terrence knew what had happened. The person on the other end had just pulled up his full account profile. They had seen the name, the position, the ownership records. The manager swallowed. "Yes, I'll handle it," he muttered before quickly hanging up. Silence filled the room. The polite smile was gone. Now there was something else in the manager's expression, something close to panic. Terrence leaned forward slightly. "Something wrong?" The manager shook his head quickly. No, not at all. Just a misunderstanding. Of course, we can process your withdrawal right away." Terrence did not move. He let the moment stretch, let the manager sit in his own discomfort. "Misunderstanding?" he repeated. The manager nodded too fast. "Yes, just a mix-up. You know how policies are." Terrence studied him. "And what exactly was the mix-up?" The manager forced another chuckle, but this time his voice was strained. "Oh, just procedural things. You understand." Terrence let out a quiet breath, his patience thinning. He had not walked into this bank expecting to be treated like a VIP. He had walked in expecting fairness, and what he had found was something much worse than an oversight. It was a reflection of a deeper problem. He stood slowly, straightening his jacket. "I'll be making a few changes around here," he said, his voice calm but carrying undeniable authority. The manager's face drained of color. "Sir, Terrence did not need to hear excuses. He had already seen enough. Without another word, he turned and walked toward the door. The moment he stepped out of the office, every employee who had ignored him, dismissed him, or whispered about him went rigid. The tellers, the security guard, even the customers who had looked past him, they all felt the shift. Terrence Walker was not just another customer, and now they all knew.